Hey friend, thanks for listening. We're all about equipping you to pursue real friendships. You were not created to be alone because life is just better with real friends. Let's get started. Hey friend, I hope that you're doing well today. Welcome to this episode with Hey Friend Podcast. We're super excited to have you here. And right now, the guy to the left of me is going to beatbox for you. And his name is Ben. Let's hear it, Ben. People want it.
Nope. That was a very, it kind of had NPR vibes, your intro.
Yeah. Have you ever?
This is NPR.
Have you ever, Philip, if you have an older car, I don't know if the newer cars are doing this, when you're at the gas station, filling up with gas, and you have your door open, it's like dinging, right? Ding, 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 ding. And then you just start beatboxing with it. I do that all the time.
Man,
Do that all the time.
learned something new today.
There we go. Yeah, if you don't want to try it out. All right, what are we talking about, Ben?
So this, one of the things we want to start doing regularly, we'll call this series something along the lines of questions with friends. Our hope with the Hey Friend podcast is to help you pursue real friendship. And one of the things that we're going to do to that end is answer specific questions from specific friends of ours. So I put out a call. In this case, I just posted on Facebook and asked a bunch of the people I know.
Facebook. Who uses Facebook anymore?
Literally hundreds of millions of people use Facebook.
Dude, Facebook is dying. Instagram is it.
Yeah, Instagram is also it. But you get
Instagram and Facebook is owned by the same company. Facebook owns Instagram. They're the same thing. But.
Exactly. So I got several responses. So what we're going to do this episode is basically just walk through a couple. We'll see how many we get through of the questions that I got. And this is a plug for future episodes too. If you have questions about whether it's a specific scenario in a specific friendship, or it's a general question about friendship, how do I do friendship well, that kind of stuff, comment on our posts. We'd love to answer your questions. So here's question number one. Is it understandable? This is from my buddy Gabe, who...
Gabe, thanks for asking us a question.
The Nashville area. He said, is it understandable to have friends for certain seasons in life?
Absolutely.
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 Done. Next question.
Well, our previous episode we talked about, or I don't know. Yeah, previous episode we talked about, friendships end at someone moved away sometimes.
Yeah.
Someone had kids, someone got married, and there's all types of season with friendships.
Yeah. I think it's almost inevitable. Like you may have a couple friendships that go through your life, childhood friends who continue into adulthood, but that's going to be pretty rare. So I think it's far more than likely that you're going to have friendships for certain seasons of your life. Not always easy, not always what you want to have happen, but that's just the reality. You're going to have certain friends in certain seasons of life. Yeah. And you're probably going to have friends that the quality of that relationship is going to change depending on the season of life. Like we have 3 young kids, and we have friends who we spent a lot of time with, pre-kids. They don't have kids yet. We're still friends with them, but we don't spend as much time together because now we're just by virtue of our priorities, we are prioritizing spending time with other families that have kids the age of our kids. Not because we don't love our other friends who don't have kids, but because one, it's a little bit easier when the kids can play together. 2, it's good for our kids. It's kind of killing 2 birds with one stone, to hang out with some friends. So yeah, it's just the reality of life. There's going to be different friends in different seasons. And I think it's important to acknowledge that and be able to realize, just like the book of Ecclesiastes says, there's a season for everything. There's time to plant, there's time to reap, there's time to sow, there's time for living, there's time for dying. And just being able to say, yes, that's the reality. And I need to be willing to hold some of the relationships I have in an open hand and say that maybe this is not the season for this friendship. Maybe this friendship was one of my closest 3 friends. And now in this new season, they're going to be, going to step down into a less intense quality of friendship. And just being able to acknowledge that is going to, I think, prepare our hearts and enable us to navigate life in a much healthier way.
And the simple answer to this, it's like you said, it will happen to us, and it's okay. It's okay that acknowledging is super important. So
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily make it fun, but
yeah,
it's going to happen.
absolutely.
This second question is kind of long, so I'm gonna summarize it. This is from Traci. Traci's talking about having a friend who she's known for many, many years. So one of those friends that has carried over from childhood since kindergarten, in this case. And Traci's saying that she's reached out to this person many times, wanting to get together with them. They keep saying, yeah, I would like to, but I'm busy. I'm too busy. And so Traci's asking, how do I handle that scenario where I've got this person that I've known for a long time? I want to hang out with them. They're saying they're too busy and just kind of putting me off. Yeah.
That's hard. That is not easy because you probably know what's going on too. You probably, the answer to that is they just don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
And it could be that, or they are really busy, but you're not priority right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not priority right now, then that means they don't want to hang out with you. So I go back to that, know. But
yeah, I would be, I don't know obviously we don't know all the details of the scenario, but the questions I would be asking in that scenario of myself is, or in this, like that come to my mind with this is, one, what's the mode of communication that's taking place here? Is this, hey, is Traci shooting a text to this friend saying, hey, let's get together sometime? And then, 6 months later, hey, let's get together sometime. Because via text, it's easy that stuff to just kind of like, oh, I got this text, I should respond to it or respond, whatever. And so that's a relatively low priority way of communication. Whereas via phone call, in-person conversation is going to be more likely to be able to have back and forth. The other thing that comes to my mind is like, how do you just have the bigger question of how do you deal with someone who's avoiding you? And it's like, obviously it sounds like Traci values this relationship. Yeah. This other person, like you're saying, it seems like they're clearly not prioritizing it if it's been pushed off for a long time. So that kind of goes back to what we're talking about in the first question, is the reality that just because you were friends in kindergarten does not necessarily mean you're going to have the same quality of friendship.
Yeah. I think having a friend, you both get to choose to be involved in each other's relationships, right? And that season, Traci might be choosing, hey, I want you to be in my life and I want to be in your life. But the response that she's getting is, no, I'm too busy right now, and that's okay. I mean, you have to realize that, and then you can keep trying, or you can say, all right, leave the ball in that other person's court. Hey, whenever, and maybe give it a call and say, hey, I really want to hang out with you, but I tried for the last 6 months and you've been saying you're busy. Yeah. And I do believe you might be busy, but we're always going to be busy in this life. So if you want to hang out, reach out to me. I want to hang out with you, but I will stop reaching out to you because you keep dodging me. So
yeah, that's a good thought. Maybe two other thoughts that I would have on that. I mean, one, right, this is a hard situation. Like if you're the person, you feel like you're wanting to put a lot into the relationship and the person's just not reciprocating. I think there might be a place for having an honest conversation with that friend and saying, hey, like we've known each other for a long time. I value our relationship. I feel like you're just avoiding me and you're using busyness as an excuse for that. That might not be the exact words to use, but having an honest conversation with that person and saying, hey, this is what's been happening. Here's how I'm feeling. And just putting that out there and being willing for them to say, yeah, honestly, like this season of life, we're not going to hang out. You need to be ready for that. But I think taking the risk of being open and honest about how you're feeling, how their actions are making you feel is going to be a positive thing. Because it may very well be that this other friend just has zero idea of the impact. Maybe they're just, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm busy. And they think, coming from the Midwest, it's a very common thing. Like I have friends who I really value, who we like pass each other every once in a while. We have busy lives. Like a friend I saw last night, John, we've texted back and forth a couple times. We used to hang out probably weekly. He was a part of a young adult group I was in. Now they got a couple kids. We got a couple kids, and saw them last night at an event that we were both at. It was fun chatting with them. And the kind of the default in the Midwest where we're at is to depart something out. But yeah, man, we should hang out sometime. And you do that, 12 times over 12 years and never actually do anything about it. and that's just kind of a normal thing. It's not necessarily a good thing to have that, but it may be that that's the dynamic that's going on there. Is this other friend doesn't see it as a big ask. They see it. They might be seeing what Traci's saying as like the equivalent of like, yeah, let's hang out sometime, because that's the thing we say in the Midwest when you do value the person, but not enough to prioritize that.
At a certain point, you have to get clarity.
Yeah.
And the only way to get clarity is to communicate well with them, right?
And be honest about how, here's what you're doing and here's how I feel about it.
Name the exact thing that's happening and have that conversation. And at the end of that conversation, you know what to do. That's clarity.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, it may be that the other person might kind of hem and haw and say, oh, yeah, let's hang out. And they might not be willing to actually say what they actually think. But if you, Traci, or anyone else in this scenario are willing to take the risk of what you're doing is you're revealing your heart to the other person and saying, hey, will you reciprocate? Will you be a friend to me like I would like you to be, like I want to be to you? And you can't control the other person's response, but you can give them grace regardless of how they respond.
And like you said a little bit earlier, be ready for it, whatever the response you get. So
yeah, totally. This third question is kind of interesting. It's almost like the person it's not the person on the other side of the question that Traci's asking, but it's a similar question. So this is Brooke asks, why is it so difficult at times to tell someone that you just aren't interested in a one-on-one friendship with them without feeling like an absolute jerk?
That one's tough too.
What do you do? What do you do, Lucas?
First of all, you're not God and you can't be there for everyone. Mm-hmm. So you have to realize that, number one. And number two, communicating well. And someone has said clarity is kindness. So if you don't want to hang out with them, just tell them that and just be kind about it. Do it and let the motive be love. It's like, hey, just be real with them. It might hurt, but the best thing you can do is be real with that person. So
yeah, I think it honors the other person more.
Absolutely.
Think of Traci's scenario where she has this friend where she's reaching out to them and saying, let's hang out, being put off. And I'll step back and I'll say it this way. I think particularly in the Midwest where we're located, there's this idea that kind of the passiveness is less painful than being really direct and honest. That's not true.
That is so not true.
All it does is it extends the pain out over a longer period of time.
You're just rolling. What is that saying? You're rolling the can for, what is that?
Oh, kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
Rolling.
Yeah, I lost that one.
We're rolling. Yeah. So you may feel like a jerk saying to someone, yeah, honestly, I can't do a one-on-one friendship with you. I'm assuming the scenario that Brooke is in is kind of the inverse, like I said, of Traci's scenario, where she's got someone who's saying, hey, let's hang out. I would love to get to know you one-on-one. And this has been taking place for a while. And Brooke's wrestling with, I'm not going to do that, but how do I communicate this to that person without sounding like a jerk?
I think the best thing to even serve that person well is to share your friendships. If Brooke doesn't want to hang out with that person, it's like, hey, let me introduce you to this person.
Yeah.
I think that's a way you can serve them well too. So being real, being honest and communicating with them with clarity and sharing your friends. That could help with that.
Yeah. A helpful framework for me in making decisions like this, where it's not necessarily like you can't like go to the Bible and say, oh, the Bible's going to tell me whether or not I should hang out one-on-one with this person. Because there's biblical commands to love people, to sacrifice your time for people, but there's also biblical clarity around like, hey, there are things that are higher priority. Like if you're married, your spouse deserves more of your time than casual acquaintances or even close friends. Or if you have kids, same thing for them. Or if you have a job, there's a hierarchy of priorities in our life that we need to have. And because the reality is we're not God, like you said, we don't have unlimited time. You can't be close with everyone. Even Jesus is not close with everyone. He prioritizes specific people where he's saying, these people are getting more of my time. Thinking of the 12 apostles specifically. And there's others in that, they're kind of around that group, than
the 3,000
or the bigger crowds around him. And Jesus isn't being a jerk. He's just saying, this is the reality of me having a human body, being limited by space and time. I have to prioritize things.
Yeah.
So I think that's important that you acknowledge those priorities. And here's the decision-making framework. The question of, okay, how do I talk to this person? Do I talk to this person, or do I just kind of keep putting them off? The question I think you need to ask yourself in a scenario like that is, am I making this decision out of fear, or am I making it out of faith? Romans, I think it's 14 or 15. Paul makes there's a little sentence in there. I should have looked it up for this, but you can go read your Bible and find it. And there's 14 or 15. Paul says this little phrase that anything that does not come from faith is sin, which is, that's talk about a challenging definition of sin. So if you're doing something out of fear or any other motivation than faith, it's probably sin. So if you're in a scenario like this and you're like, man, I'm not going to tell that person because I'm afraid they think I'm a jerk, or they're going to think I'm a jerk, that probably means you need to tell them. Otherwise, you're operating out of fear, which means it's a sin for you to not tell them.
And that goes to even friends that are in your life.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
If you don't tell someone something that they need to hear, it might hurt. Yeah, of course, you know, but you're not sacrificing you're sacrificing them, you know. But if you do tell them, I feel like you're sacrificing you because they might not respond well. So
yeah.
And I heard that saying, I was like, that is so true. I think, again, our motives always have to be love.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, anything we do. And people need to also, I don't know, I'm kind of going all over the place here, but man, how we say things, why we say things, and where it's coming from, like our words matter.
Yes.
And if the motive is not, how do I build this person up with love instead of tearing them apart? I think tearing them apart is not saying anything sometimes.
Yeah,
tearing them
for
apart
sure.
is sometimes responding with your emotions, you know? But it's just, just going to the Lord. It's like, Lord, give me clarity. How do I, in his kindness, you know, like how can you be gentle with your words, and how can you even build them up? And I think that's one of the things I said, like, if you don't want to hang out with the person, communicate that with them.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can also connect them with your other friends too. So
yeah, I'll give two kind of practical thoughts in a scenario like this. There's two things you can do. Yeah. One, similar to what you were just saying, you can acknowledge, you need to be clear with this about with the person. You need to be clear saying, hey, this is not a relationship that I have the capacity to do a bunch of one-on-one stuff with, but here's what I can do. I can include you on group hangouts when we get in 5 or 6 friends together. I'll invite you to that. Or like you're saying, Lucas, here's some other people who you might enjoy connecting with. The other thing that you can do is, I think there's value in giving someone what you can give. Maybe you can't commit to a long-term one-on-one friendship where you're meeting up weekly. That's fine. But there can be some significant impact in someone's life if you say, yeah, you know, you've been asking me this for a while. Let's go to get coffee once. You know, I can't commit to anything long-term, but I can go out with you for a half hour after work. We can meet up at a restaurant and do dinner or whatever that might be. And say, I can't give you this, but this is what I can give you. And here's why, because I have these other things that I'm committed to.
I've also seen what I think that's a great way to respond to a situation like that.
Yeah.
What I've seen when you do that though, when you just like, yeah, let's grab coffee. You never know what anyone's going through. You really never know, right? And maybe they're in a season that they're hurting and they're just looking to talk to someone. And the one time you say yes and they just open up, and that could be heavy for you too. But I think the best thing we can do is continue to keep bringing things to light, right?
Yeah.
And to see what the situation is, and how can we, as brothers and sisters in Christ, how do we support each other, and how do we go to Jesus together, you know, and how do we help each other to pick up one another, you know? So you never know what anyone's going through. And I think knowing and listening to the Spirit and listening to the Father and listening really, even in a situation like that with prayer, it's like, and if the Lord asks you to go be part of someone's life for 30 minutes, a day, a year, whatever that looks like, listen to him.
Yep.
So, and we might give you answers because these are based off some of the things that we've experienced, but don't do anything without the Lord, his hands are not in it. So,
Yeah, for sure. Let's do one last question. This is from Derek. He mentions Aristotle says one of the keys to a life of contentedness is having a small group of close friends. My question is there a limit on how many friends one can truly have, and what should that number be?
a lot. I did some heavy research on this a while ago, and Jesus had the 12, and some people said, well, 12 is the right number. Okay,
But why?
But why? And then they're like, oh, 6 is the right number, 4 is the right number, 1 is the right number. So I think that really depends where you're around and like how God brings you guys together, right?
Sure.
There's 6 of us in my life group, 6 of us, right? And there's challenges between getting us all together all the time just to play. But us getting together on a Monday night, every Monday, like that's important to us. So we're going to make time for that, right? But outside of that, it can be hard to all of us to get together. Yeah. But it would be a lot easier if there was only 2 of us, right? And it's like, I only have to talk to these 2 people. I don't have to talk to 4 other guys or 5 other guys to get together. So it has its challenges and it has its ups and downs for sure. But I believe, this is just my opinion, okay? The smaller, the better.
So 0.
No, like 3, 4.
Yeah.
Even like us is 6, and I think for us it's working, right? We also have been doing this for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think the smaller, the better. That's just my thought. So
yeah, so there's this really interesting field in, I believe it's sociology, called proxemics, which is the study of how people interact in different size spaces and different size groups. So it's kind of like about physical distance between people and how do they tend to interact in those areas. You can look it up on Google or Wikipedia if you want more information about it. I'm not necessarily an expert on it, but I've read a couple little things about it and I find it fascinating. The key takeaway from the ideas behind the field of proxemics, though, is that different size groups interact differently. The different size groups tend to lend themselves most effectively to different types of things. A group of, like 100 people, or I forget what the exact numbers is, but it's something like 70 plus, 80 plus people, tends to function most naturally by orienting itself towards an external resource. You think of people in a church sitting facing the pastor who's teaching them, or people at a concert who are facing the stage and observing, versus a group of 2 or 3 people that it tends to be a smaller amount of distance. You're sitting close, like you and I are. You and I are actually a little bit farther apart than we would probably default if we were sitting like at a coffee shop at a table. We'd be a little bit closer than this. And that type of group lends itself most naturally to disclosing depth of information, developing intimate relationships. So I say that to affirm, I think what you're saying, if you want a couple close friends, that's probably not going to be 12 people. It's probably going to be more like 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 people. And some of that's going to be shaped by your capacity. I'm an extrovert, so I naturally have more people who have a little bit more access to my life than my wife, who is much more introverted. So she's going to have fewer people, but probably going to go deeper with those few people that she has. So I think there's a couple things to take away from that. One is like, know yourself and know what your capacities are and lean into that rather than trying to resist that. And 2, just realize that, different size groups are going to lend itself differently. And you don't feel like you have to limit your friendships to one of those categories, right? But you should probably, like you said, have, I'd say, at least 1 or 2 people that you would count as really close friends. If you're married, one of those people should be your spouse, but your spouse doesn't count in the sense of like, I would say, your spouse counts as a friend. But if you're looking out and saying, man, I have 0 close friends, I don't know anyone else other than my spouse, that I would argue that's not a healthy place for you to be in the way of close friendship. You need some real friends outside of your marriage to support you. So like I'd say 2 minimum, 3, 4 is that's going to probably be this close circle of people. So some people might be in a unique scenario where you got, like for you guys, the 6 of you, where you've really structured that friendship. You've said, hey, we're getting together this time. And obviously you hang out outside of that, but there's structure built to it that makes it possible for that to be 6 people rather than 2 or 3.
Yeah, even within the 6, I feel like there is, at seasons in our friendships, there's some that hang out more than the rest, you know? So like, it's always 2 or 3, but getting 6 of us together, like we plan that out, like within, every 4 weeks we try to do a dinner. Even in those dinners that we...
Yeah, probably not everyone's going to make it each time.
Yeah. So the smaller, again, the better. You know, so
totally.
Where did Jesus say, where 2 more are at, there I am? Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all we got time for. If you got any questions, feel free to send them in. We'll use them for future questions with friends episodes.
These are fun. Friends, we love you, and go follow Jesus more today, and we'll see you next week.
Time.